All I can say is that, Hizuru is still just the best character. The best girl. It is what it is. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to some more Summertime Render. Episode 19. Previously on episode 18, Shadow Come. That's right, Shadow Come, ladies and gentlemen. Now you might be wondering, what is Shadow Come? What do you think it is? It's when Daddy Shadow and Mommy Human love each other very much. Yes, a shadow had a child. Apparently the shadows do indeed have reproductive organs, or rather, I should say their shit works, They can not only just copy, but also do the thing, They can do the thing. But yeah, Shinpei and company confronted, I think his name is like Cuddy Kitty or something, which, like, there was some confusion, honestly. I'm not really sure what's going on, to be honest, but what I do know is that Shadow Ushio died, which is very good, by the way. We saw Shinpei, die and loop, and then Shadow Ushio just disappeared, or like was gone, which just wasn't there anymore. Now, I've brought up the question of, like, what happens to the previous version of Shadow Ushio back in time? Like, if there's a line, right, of like a timeline, and you go back in time physically, there should be a previous version of you there, right? Like, there should be two of you there now. And considering Shadow Ushio always went back physically, like, what happens to her past self, exactly? That's something that was kind of just never explained. But maybe in this episode. Regardless, let's just get into episode 19 of Summertime Render. Now, before we start here, we obviously know that Shinpei is gonna be a pussy about it, let's be honest. Also, she can just talk through a fucking bird now? Really? What? What? Didn't we just establish, like, last episode or the one before that he has a couple of loops now? Because he hasn't died once since they won that fight. Except that one now, earlier, right? I don't want to do this, but I have to talk about it. This is why you cannot have, especially in a time loop or time travel or any kind of story like this, you cannot have rules that change to fit the narrative. You have to play around the rules. You cannot just change the rules randomly. You cannot have a rule that says, oh, well, sometimes we go back 15 minutes, and then sometimes we go back 2 hours, and then other times we go back 17 days. It's like, and by going back, I mean, like, you get what I'm saying, right? Like, first it was like, he goes back to 15 minutes forward from the beginning, right? Then he goes back 2 hours forward from the beginning. That now he's going back like 2 days from the beginning. It's like, literally, like I said, I think last episode, or no, actually the one before that, I think. Once they won the fight, maybe it was last episode actually, I don't even remember, but they said, Shinpei literally said, oh, now we have some leeway when it comes to loops. He hasn't died since then. So why the fuck are we all of a sudden, we die once, and then, oh my god, Now it's like they have an entire day. They won the fight. They won the fight, the big fight, and then they had a whole night when Shinpei was like sleeping and everything, got some rest, and then they went out to hunt the fucking they made a plan. They went out to hunt shadows, and they didn't die there either. And they arrived here once they died. It's like they died once, and all of a sudden they're like, what? How? And this is the problem, where, like I said, stick to the damn rules. You can't just change the rules just to fit the fucking storyline. Well, he's fucked now. Interesting. Huh? 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 I do know that last episode, when Shadow Ushio like disappeared, she was like, "Oh, Shinpei, notice, please." Notice what? Right? Like she like flashed the shadow Karikiri guy, right? And then was like, "Oh, Shinpei, notice, please." It's definitely something to do with that, I think, but I'm not even sure. I at this point, I don't really want to think anymore, you know? I really don't want to think anymore, because the more I think, the more problems I'm just gonna find, unfortunately. We've gotten to that point, unfortunately. Very, very unfortunately. I think you mean Shadow Ushio, by the way. Interesting. Also, even the fact that Shinpei can feel that he can't loop, that's already kind of like, what the fuck? Just the fact that they're kind of just going away from the, like, how do I explain this? Remember when we started the show, and in the beginning, you know, in the first like 2 or so loops, Shinpei was like writing shit down, like, oh, okay, you know, every loop takes me 15 minutes closer, and like blah blah blah, right? What happened to that? Right? You're essentially, it feels to me like they had a plan at first. They had a thought of the writer, I mean, they had a thought of like, okay, I'm gonna do it so that every loop takes the main character back 15 minutes, but then kind of halfway through, they started either forgetting about this or felt like, oh, you know, this rule doesn't like fit the story anymore. Like, I want to move the story along, but it's taking too long if I account for like every loop for 15 minutes, right? So it's like this rule became more of a restriction And so they just kind of halfway through were like, oh, I mean, let's just make it so that, sometimes the rule of 15 minutes doesn't really work, right? And then they kind of go change the rule to whatever they kind of want. My point is that what's the point of having your main character 5 minutes ago say, oh, we have more leeway now, we have a couple of loops to use, and then literally after the first time they loop, they're like, oh, I can't loop anymore, I'm gonna die, it's gonna be the end. And then when he's about to get killed, right after saying, oh, I can't loop anymore, I'm gonna die, right here, it's the end, then he gets saved by some random thing that the villain notices by coincidence, and so on and so forth. It's like, or you could have had Shinpei die there, and then go back in time again for another loop, and then Haine kills him again, basically, taking away his loops, right? Down to one again. It's like they want the tension, the thrill of him not being able to go back anymore, but then create a situation where he gets out of it by coincidence or luck. It's just Yeah, you were.
葬儀やコバマートでコピーされたことも全部なかったことになって。いや、違う。
これもコピーすんの？
いや、これはもうお母さんがコピーしてる。
俺をコピーしたのは。
Right? The one who copied him was Shiori at the funeral, who we know was actually Haine now. So, and we've established that shadows can retain the data and just transform into them whenever they want.
そしてハイネは3週目、夏祭りの終わりから来た。あの時の俺の影が今になって使われたんだ。でもどうやって電話を？俺の携帯をコピーしたところでオリジナルを消さないと使えない。ミオ、誰がこんな？
まさかさっきの電話は。もっと優しいに抜いてよね。
悪い。
私の記憶をあげる。
Okay, so they can all do that.
しんちゃんが死んだって。だからハッキングが解けたら危ないってしんちゃんが言ってた。またこいつが敵になるかもしらんって。
そんなミオがやったのか？
ミオにしんちゃんから電話があって。
でもまさか今俺の携帯がこの世に2台使える状態で存在してるとはうかつやった。
I'm not gonna lie, it kind of went over my head. I wasn't really paying attention about the phone.
あいつは俺の携帯もコピーした。それが最後にハイネの体に取り込まれたんや。
そっか。それをハイネはこの8週目に持ち越してきてるんや。
まずいぞ。ハイネは南雲先生。
And this is something that just slightly annoys me, right? Notice how in detail they go about this phone thing, and yet. So it's like, oh, they're trying to explain the very detailed way that Haine was able to kind of have Shinpei's phone duplicated somehow, right? This and that and the third thing. But when it comes to the whole time travel thing, then they can't keep to a rule. I don't care about this phone thing. I really don't. What I care about is the fact that you literally last episode or the one before that, you said that we have multiple loops now, we have some leeway because, we won the fight, we have some time now. And then all of a sudden, after one death, no, we don't have time now. Can you stop doing that? It's just annoying. I just wish they would stick to some of these time travel rules.
俺の声、ハイネか。なんで先生の携帯から。先生はどうした？自分の目で確かめよ。観測者。ヒズルたちは虎島に、ニオたちはアランの畑におる。おまん次第じゃ。どっちを助けに行くかはな。
This is a little bit stupid because why doesn't Haine just kill them all? Maybe she already has. She better have, honestly. There's no reason not to do it. Because you know that Shinpei's trying to save people. So it's like, obviously, why wouldn't you just kill them? Right? That forces Shinpei to want to jump back in time. But he can't, right?
ハイネは今しんちゃんの人格で思考してる。私らも俯瞰されてる。
俯瞰しろ。ハイネはなんでこんな回りくどいことを。ミヨか先生か。
どっちも嘘で、どっちももう殺されてるかも。
I mean, at this point, they're just fucked.
ここにカリキリさん。
立派なキュウリやなこれ。よね。
新平をどうした？
でも母はどっちも嫌いでね。困ったもんやと思いますね。人ってどんな味なんでしょうね。
危険やのこの地形や。いずれ電話はほんまに新平やったんやろな。
電話越しでは龍之介でも人と影の区別はつかん。着信は確かに網代新平の携帯からだったが、
牛尾がやられたんやろ。すでに新平も殺されちゃう可能性はないんか。
Good. I'm glad they're at least doubting
新
it.
平のループが尽きてハイネの観測する世界になっている可能性はな。だがそうだとしてもやることは変わらん。ハイネを殺す、それだけだ。まず私だけ虎島に渡る。ここから狙えるかネズ。
島の南側だけやったらな。
十分だ。新平が影だった場合は合図を送る。時子、その時はギルとロズで突入したまえ。
わかりました。
また後でおら。いずれ
Well, she's dead.
のない老人だな。
Or he's dead.
フラグを立てるんじゃない。
That's what I was gonna say.
フラグ。
もしこの戦いが終わったらこの島での体験を小説にするよ。ノンフィクションはまだ書いたことないんだ。
Well, she's so dead. I mean, she even called out her own death flag. But then again, that could be that could be a like a counter to a death flag, right? If you call it out.
なんてことや。影の気配。いや、これはハイネの気配。こちらに誘い出さないとネズさんから狙えない位置。読まれてんのか。
南雲先生、無事でよかった。他のみんなはどこにいるんですか。
猿芝居はやめろハイネ。お前自身が変身してるとはな。新平さんをどうした。
14年前ヒズルに次会うたら殺す言うたんもここじゃった。さらばじゃ龍之介。
お見事。
These faces, bro.
カリキリマサヒト。でも人だ。お前から影の気配がしない。
That's what I was gonna say.
今みたいに後ろから近づいて。
Okay, okay. I'm glad they actually mentioned this. Like, they get a point back from me. A lot of people would just kind of, you know, not even mention this. Not even like, you know, they talk a big game about setting up this kind of rule where Shadow Ushio can sense shadows, right? And then all of a sudden a shadow sneaks up on him and kills her. Most shows would just kind of say, you know, we kind of forgot that she could sense shadows, so, you know, it is what it is. At least they're mentioning it.
君にこの手は通じやんか。予知能力があるんやってね。南方龍之介くん。
やっぱりバレてたんか。
が南方龍之介をコピーした。じゃがわしの人やった頃の人格が友達の弟を食べてしもた事実に耐えられず、龍之介のデータとともにわしから弾け出よった。じゃがあれは何分事故。少々座標がずれてプリントされたようじゃわ。
座標あいてて。
1ではなく時間の座標じゃ。正確には2秒。 先の方へずれちゃある。
あらまあ。
そいつは今2秒未来からヒズルの体を動かしとるんじゃ。
正解かな、ヒズルちゃん。
Okay, that's a little hard to wrap your head around, but it's interesting. I've never seen that done before, and I've seen a lot of time travel stuff.
全部君のせいなんですよ、ヒズルちゃん。
何を言う。これ以上お姉ちゃんを傷つけんな。
君は私には勝てやんよ、龍之介君。これは泥です。かつて影だった者たち、そして今は誰でもない者たち。私も私の能力を教えます。フェアやないとゲームは面白ない。これは私の意志に反応して形を変える。そして誰でもないがゆえに弱点もまたない。
ムクロの鎧。
The way they kind of set this up, or the way they the order of scenes makes me think that there's more than one of this guy. Because before it was like, okay, we have the original, and then we have the copy, but they literally just determined that you cannot sense a shadow from even this guy, which means the one that was killed in the shrine might not have been a shadow, or might not have been the original either. So there could be more than two. There could be like 3 or 4 even.
やっぱりな。お姉ちゃんの言うた通り、攻撃をかわさせて避けた先で僕を仕留める気か。けどシデに2秒先の僕が見えてるわけじゃない。ハイネが見てからシデにテレパシーで伝わるまでほんの一瞬タイムラグがある。それなら早く、より早く僕が動けばいいだけのこと。
Okay, that was good. Combo? Not bad, not bad. However,
傷口が開いてますよ。それは昨夜私が打った傷ですね。
それだけじゃない。右腕の骨にひびが入った。体中の筋肉も断裂してる。これ以上お姉ちゃんの体が持たん。合図は送った。なんとかして根津さんの射程に入りさえすれば一瞬の隙を作って逃げられる。待って。
お姉ちゃん。
逃げるな。逃げるな、龍之介。
ヒズルか。
it's interesting. I wonder if
お姉ちゃんの事故に。
that's what I was gonna say. Like, what is going on? Like, how can they now?
なんで僕が起きてるん。
How can they now
初
communicate?
めてお姉ちゃんとリアルタイムで話せた。嘘。これ夢と違う。
And again, why can they do this now? Let me guess, you're not gonna explain, right? This show kind of loves explaining some of the more dumber things, like, oh, how to copy a phone or something. Sure, that's kind of important, but like, at the same time, they don't explain other things. Like, they love explaining some things, but not other things. If you're gonna explain one thing or two things, I'm expecting you to explain everything.
やかましい。緊急事態だ。やむをえん。
お姉ちゃん嬉しいよ。
いいか、よく聞け龍之介。勝機はある。逃げてもどうせ明日死ぬ。
でも
考えるな。考えるのは私の役目だ。お前も見ただろう。あの物質。
She's just the best character.
いいか、今から伝える作戦はお前にしかできない。
Ah, classic. We don't get to hear it.
操作は任せるぞ。私に気ぃつこて、まだ力をセーブしてるやろ。私の体壊れてもええ。存分に使え。
God damn it. I mean, if it wasn't obvious already, she's 100% the best character in this show. Not even a question. It's not even a question. Yeah. So the only thing I'm gonna real quick mention here is basically exactly what I said during the episode. Like, some things they explain, some things they don't explain. Like this whole, like, how Haine was able to copy his phone and stuff like that. I don't really care. They could have just as easily done something different, or done, considering like they suspected him anyway, they could have just as easily had him, I don't know, call from a fucking public some sort of public phone or something, or use someone else's phone to call them, and then they suspect him anyway. But they're gonna go, like Nagumo said, like Hizuru said, right? Even if it is fake, even if it is a shadow, like, they have no real options, right? Like, they're gonna go fight anyway. They could have just not done the whole "I copy your phone" thing, right? They could have just cut that whole thing out. Like, sure, it's cool that you explain it, but like, because they explained this, the phone thing, I'm questioning, like, okay, but why aren't you explaining why we have no loops anymore? Even though last episode, or the one before that, you said, oh, now we have a couple of loops to use. And then we die once, and we don't have any loops, and all of a sudden, oh, if I die here, it's all over. How? What? When did this happen? Like, it's just annoying that they kind of, some things, they try to follow the rules, they try to follow, like, this, they try to do the whole detective thing with figuring shit out, right? How did Haine copy my phone? I don't get it. It shouldn't have worked. She must have copied this thing in this other timeline, and this small detail here, and this small detail there. Oh my god, that's how she copied my phone. But, like, why don't you do the exact same type of thinking for the whole looping itself? Like, why not just, you know? I think they're, like, focusing on explaining some of the wrong things. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the whole phone thing, I just don't fucking give a shit. I really don't. And then here, at the end here, how did Hizuru get to talk to Ryunosuke out of nowhere all of a sudden, somehow? You know? Like, they explain, okay, another cool thing, they explain how, even though they didn't go into a lot of detail, but, like, they explained kind of how Ryunosuke ended up inside Hizuru in the first place, and how he has this ability to, you know, see 2 seconds into the future. That's kind of cool, you know, like that Ryunosuke is controlling her body from 2 seconds in the future, or something along those lines. That's cool. But then right after, it's like, how are they now? How you established earlier in the show that they cannot talk to each other without the phone recording. They cannot communicate, and then all of a sudden, to fit the narrative, to fit the situation, otherwise Ryunosuke and Hizuru, they would be fucked, because the enemy is not going to wait for them to, you know, for Hizuru to do a recording and then for Ryunosuke to listen to that recording, right? They're not going to do that. So it's like the story needs them to be able to communicate in this specific instance. So it's like, aha, surprise, now we can. You can't just do that. It just doesn't make sense. But yeah, I mean, it was an alright episode. They're kind of, as I said, they're kind of just kind of doing their own thing, and I don't really want to think about it too hard anymore, to be honest. All I can say is that, you know, Hizuru is still just the best character, the best girl. It is what it is. In any case, that was episode 19 of Summertime Render. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time in episode 20. Next time.